Hello, everybody. Let's do it. What's up? Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. Speaking of that, I need to get the brand name up there. There it is. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I'm Lee Camp, your most censored comedian commentator in America, your resident anti-Zionist Jew, your resident doesn't want to be doing the news every day, but ended up doing the news every day because our mainstream media won't goddamn cover the news every day. So that's my job, and welcome. It's good to see you. Although these are tragic times, I'm going to be getting into a lot of updates about Israel's special genocide operation, as well as kind of a truly unbelievable article by the New York Times admitting that so much of what we've been saying about the proxy war in Ukraine is true, although they weirdly don't seem to understand that they're admitting this as it goes. And by the way, folks, I hope those of you on locals are seeing this all right. I know there are some issues going on with locals. If you have any trouble viewing this, please go over to, if there's any glitches or anything, please go over to rumble.com/LeeCamp. Anyway, I'm going to be getting into all that. Please click like, share, subscribe, all those good things. But let's start off with the tragic news. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. This airman, this soldier in the U.S. Air Force, I guess, Aaron Bushnell, self-immolated, lit himself on fire outside the Israeli embassy here in the United States to protest the ongoing genocide in Gaza. He has now died of his wounds. He did not die immediately, but it is tragic. And at the same time, I suppose we shouldn't be surprised to see ripple effects and ramifications of committing genocide, even if it is thousands of miles away. It's kind of crazy that when you commit genocide, there tends to be these horrible ripple effects of both very physical in the case of Aaron Bushnell, but kind of metaphysical in terms of what's going on inside us. I don't know about you, but I feel like I feel it every day as our nation, along with Israel, continues to commit this genocide. By the way, some updates on the numbers. Over 37,000 now murdered and missing in Gaza. 37,000. It's day 143, I believe, of Israel's genocide operation. And interestingly, people have pointed out, this Airman Bushnell, he videotaped himself walking up there and doing it. He said on the videotape, I'm doing this as a protest against the genocide in Gaza, and obviously could not justify his own participation in the U.S. military-industrial complex as well, but also just in general being a part of this system. And someone has pointed out that the mainstream media, although they have covered this to some degree or another, someone put together these, it was put together by Asal Rod, who put together the headlines. And here's New York Times, Reuters, CNN, and Washington Post. And in each one of these headlines, and let's be honest, most Americans only read the headlines. We're not big readers. We don't like all the words. So a lot of people get their news from just the headlines. And all of these headlines don't actually say why he was doing it. A man set himself on fire outside the Israeli embassy in Washington, police said. U.S. airman sets himself on fire outside Israeli embassy in Washington, Reuters says. U.S. airman sets himself on fire outside Israeli embassy in Washington, CNN says. Washington Post says active duty airman sets himself on fire outside D.C.'s Israeli embassy. Somehow they managed to leave out the words Gaza and genocide in every one of these. Someone else has pointed out that in some of these articles, they even make the point of saying it's unclear whether it was a protest or not. No, it's not unclear. There's a videotape of it that has been shared widely around the interwebs of him saying that is the reason that he set himself on fire. And I also wanted to bring you his, if I can find it quickly, his final post that he posted publicly. He said, many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery or the Jim Crow South or apartheid, what would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is you're doing it right now. And yeah, I mean, that's a powerful pose for a few reasons, obviously, coming from someone who has now killed himself to make a point. But on top of that, he says you're now doing it. And he's basically not saying it, actually, at least that post does not say you're doing wrong. He's just saying you take a look at yourself and decide right now if you are doing what you'd like to be doing during these pivotal times in history, during the Holocaust, during slavery. Is this the behavior you would have wanted to have during those times? And if it's not, why not? If it's not, why are you sitting it out? If it's not, why are you deciding it's not worth protesting right now? Not worth standing up against genocide, not worth protesting against apartheid, not worth pushing back against a riptide of destruction and obliteration and ethnic cleansing. Anyway, this airman has you know taken these grave actions, these serious actions, taking his life. And I, you know, I don't want to endorse actions like that, because I don't feel that people should have to kill themselves to make a to get a message across. However, I would like to say that if there are the people where they see that and they say, wow, that's powerful, or wow, that really got people's attention or whatever, how about you join the protest? And I'm especially speaking to those who are military or ex-military. You know, he happened to take his life, but there's got to be hundreds, if not thousands, of current military, ex-military veterans out there who are not okay with this genocide. And at a minimum, I'd say show up to these protests. You know how powerful an image that would be to have, you know, a bunch of veterans, U.S. veterans, a bunch of active duty in their uniform. I don't care whether it's allowed or not. Saying that this is genocide, calling this what it is, and standing up against it. It would be powerful. Or joining the groups of people that are interrupting these politicians who are, you know, backing and endorsing and making this possible, making this ongoing genocide possible. Be one of those people standing up during those protests. Let's see if I can find the video. Be one of these people. So this is Biden at a stop just the other day where he was interrupted a dozen times by people calling him Genocide Joe and basically demanding that he demand a ceasefire, not to mention, oh, I don't know, don't send billions of dollars and thousands of bombs to be dropped on children. Maybe stop sending them. There's an idea. Because Biden and Blinken, who I'm going to obliterate later, Biden and Blinken and all of them, they say these words like, oh, we're opposed to this. Oh, we don't think Israel is behaving appropriately. Oh, we think Israel should probably go easy on civilians. Meanwhile, they are continuing to send bombs and money to further this genocide. They vetoed the UN resolution to call this a genocide. Anyway, here are the protesters.
A chance to sit down. This is going to go on for a while. They got
it is going to go on for a while, you asshole.
So
and it just kept happening, which makes it impossible for him to continue to give his speech endorsing this genocide. He basically has to sit there, and the whole crowd also, in order to try and support his garbage, has to go 4 more years, which is a lot of hilarious, because when one person's standing up and saying, stop the genocide, and everybody goes 4 more years, it sounds like they're saying 4 more years of genocide, which they kind of are. Like, I mean, now granted, Trump and Joe Biden would do the exact same. Do you really think Trump would not be endorsing this genocide, would not be facilitating Israel's ethnic cleansing? Of course Trump would. Trump was the equivalent, if not worse, to Biden and Obama on Israel and Bush. So yeah, so the 4 more years thing is hilarious. You're committing genocide. 4 more years, just 4 more years of genocide, and then we will have had plenty. We will have gotten our fill at that point. But so while you have that story of this American airman setting himself on fire, killing himself in protest of what the U.S. is facilitating right now in Gaza. Meanwhile, that's not really the top story that the mainstream media has run with. I'm not saying they haven't covered it at all. As I just showed you, they have covered it some. But here is a far more important story that was brought to you on your mainstream media airwaves.
Good evening. I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom Yamas. We begin tonight with that breaking news. An unidentified balloon flying over the western United States.
Key point. This is not 10 months ago. This is like 2 days ago. This is 2 days ago. And it is back to the old, there's a balloon in the sky.
That balloon spotted over Utah this morning at an altitude between 43 and 45,000 feet.
Yep.
NORAD scrambling fighter jets.
Sent up fighter jets to go look at the weather balloon.
To check it out. Multiple U.S. officials telling NBC News tonight it is carrying a payload. They say it's about 2 feet square, but they do not believe it's a national security threat.
We're doing it again. We're doing the whole everybody ignore what the reality is in your world and just pay attention to the balloon. It's going to get you. It's going to get you any minute now. And by the way, well, let me just hear her say it. I think she says something about the Chinese spy balloon.
But they also still do not know what it is exactly or where it originally came from. This incident comes a year after that Chinese spy balloon spent a week flying across.
The Chinese spy balloon, right? She's calling it a Chinese spy balloon. She seems to have forgotten that. Let's see. I know I have it here somewhere. Yeah, here it is. She seems to have forgotten that even the U.S., even the Pentagon said that that Chinese spy balloon was not spying. And which kind of, I'd argue, makes it not really a spy balloon. I feel like to be a spy balloon, you got to spy a little bit, like just a little on the weekends, something. But no, even the Pentagon said, this is from The Guardian 7 months ago, even the Pentagon said Chinese spy balloon downed in February did not collect information. The Chinese spy balloon shot down by a U.S. fighter jet over the Atlantic in February did not collect intelligence as it flew across the United States. Here's a quote from the Pentagon spokesperson. It's been our assessment now that it did not collect intelligence while it was transiting the United States or overflying the United States. Not much of a fucking spy balloon, is it? It kind of needs to do some spying to be a spy balloon, doesn't it? Because if you really wanted to spy, if China really wanted to spy on the United States from the skies, I'd hate to break it to everyone. They have satellites and we have satellites and we're spying on other nations right now with those satellites. They don't need to send a balloon slowly across the United States like some big group of idiots. Okay. And as you recall, after that spy balloon was shot down by the United States at the cost of something like $2 million, they also then spent a couple million shooting down 2 other balloons in the following week or two. One of them was a $12 hobby balloon that had been sent up by a hobby club, like a middle school hobby club, put a little balloon in the air, and NORAD sent jets to shoot $1 million missiles at it. Is there any sign that this might be a waning empire, that we might be starting to lose it a little bit in terms of our need to control the world and our paranoia? But really, the real story here is not about paranoia, because let's face it, I don't think the higher echelons of the American system were really that concerned about the balloon at all. I think instead it serves two main purposes. One is to distract everybody from what's actually going on around this world, and the other is to create fear in the average American populace, right? We all of those sitting across the country, and sadly, this goes for rather smart people that I talked to back when the Chinese weather balloon was traversing the country. They go, oh my God, look at what the Chinese are doing. They're trying to get us. And literally a lot of Americans continue to believe that, because guess what? They never see that article that I just pulled up saying that the Chinese spy balloon did no spying. That article doesn't really get to them for some reason. Instead, you just get the main freak out. But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. Thank you, Brent, for the donation. Want to say thanks for making what's often heavy stuff a bit lighter. Good heart on you, brother. Thank you so much, Brent, for the donation. You guys keep this show going. You can see all the corporate sponsors that fund this show floating around on the screen. I get offers all day long from all these huge corporations that just want to be a part of my show, and so clearly they just fund all of it. That was a joke. For those of you listening to the podcast, there are no corporate sponsors on the screen, in case you were wondering. But let's get back to the ongoing genocide. Israel is just like every level of soulless that you can get to, that you can try and achieve, Israel is trying to achieve right now. I don't even need to tell you again about bombing hospitals, shooting, killing journalists, trying to ban all food and everything from getting into Gaza, causing starvation, celebrating that starvation. I've brought you photos and video of the IDF robbing banks, robbing safes, robbing people's homes of whatever they can steal from Gaza. Here is video of the thousands, I believe it is, maybe hundreds of 2,000. There we go. Trucks waiting, and I mean Mack trucks of aid, of food, of water, of medicine, waiting to get in to Gaza. This is air video brought to you by Al Jazeera, and Israel will not let any of this aid get into Gaza. So in case anyone thinks that the Gazans are starving because people just aren't helping out, or there's not been an international effort to bring food to them, that is not true. This is actually thousands of trucks that are not being allowed into Gaza by Israel. On top of that, you have average Israeli citizens are doing their best to try and block the entrance to Gaza, to try and block aid from getting to children, which is really unbelievable that even the average citizens, even the people who are not currently in the military, although everyone in Israel serves in the military at some point, just about, but even they want to stop children from getting a loaf of bread. This that I posted on my Twitter is an image of a tank, Israeli tank, rolling over bread and other food as a demonstration. They obviously videotaped it and put it up online because they're very proud of the fact that they are destroying food rather than let it get into Gaza. So, like I said, a level of soulless behavior that is truly unbelievable. On top of that, there's been many articles and many posts of how the IDF is proudly, for some reason, grabbing women's lingerie in some sort of perverted genocidal ethnic cleansing celebration. They're stealing that. They're putting it on the fronts of tanks. They're posing with it. That type of thing is being done. It really is just repulsive on every level. And it is heartening in a way. I mean, it's tough to call anything heartening as this goes on for day 143 of this genocide, but it is a little bit heartening to see that there are people at higher and higher levels that are turning against this. Now, 80% of the world lives in countries that are already against this, but even in the echelons of power in Israel, a few people, the echelons of power in the United States, and I've brought to you some of the mutiny that's been going on with various staff from the White House to the State Department saying they'll no longer be a part of this. Obviously, you have military personnel like Bushnell turning against this genocide in various ways. But here is even the former prime minister of Israel, I repeat, the former prime minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert, has put out an opinion piece in Haaretz. Haaretz is the more left-wing newspaper in Israel. An opinion piece titled Netanyahu's Messianic Coalition Partners Want an All-Out Regional War. Gaza is just a first step. He says the ultimate aim of this gang is purging, read ethnic cleansing, the West Bank of its Palestinian inhabitants, cleansing the Temple Mount of its Muslim worshippers, and annexing the territories to the state of Israel. This aim will not be achieved without extensive, violent conflict, Armageddon. And Armageddon's sick of this, I think, is what that was his initial title. They asked him to change that because they just didn't feel it fit the tone. But this is the goddamn former prime minister of Israel saying that this is not okay. This is genocide. I mean, he calls it cleansing. He calls it ethnic cleansing. And like, to me, that is, you're seeing this more and more, and this should be all over mainstream media. This should be a major, and I mean U.S. mainstream media. This should be a major story in U.S. mainstream media that the former prime minister, even the former prime minister of Israel, is calling this ethnic cleansing. He's saying they want a regional war, which I've talked about how Israel does want a regional war. Now, they have to be careful about how they do that because they need the U.S. to be involved in it. If they were to just go up against Iran or Hezbollah alone, and there has been some tit for tat with Hezbollah, but it's not an all-out war. But if they went up against them alone, it would be catastrophic to Israel. So instead, Israel wants to draw the U.S. into a regional war, in which case then Israel would be by far the more powerful, at least alliance with the United States. But so far, it's just been a tit for tat with Hezbollah. But anyway, back to the fact that you have the former prime minister calling this ethnic cleansing. He used the word cleansing. And let's be honest, many of the people in the Israeli government who are endorsing this, who are behind this, who are putting out these plans, even they have used words like cleansing. They have used words that are genocidal speak. So that shows you how far they are falling. Israel's falling. The propaganda is not working anymore. It's just not. The Hasbara, as they call it, is not working anymore. Even having Wonder Woman as genocide Barbie, even having Wonder Woman promote this genocide is not succeeding. Most of Americans want a ceasefire at minimum. I've brought to you the polling showing that Israel across the world has gone from a positive view in many countries to a negative view. And from the countries that already had a negative view of the apartheid state of Israel, it has gone to a just completely negative view, even more negative view. Okay, one more story before I bring to you my destruction of Antony Blinken. Let's see this. So this is from United Nations Geneva posted this. And this is another big story. Any transfer of weapons, this is their official Twitter account, any transfer of weapons or ammunition to Israel that would be used in Gaza is likely to violate international humanitarian law and must cease immediately. Human rights experts warned today, quote, all states must not be complicit in international crimes through arms transfers. And the U.S., of course, is doing that. The U.S. is a part of these crimes, is a big part of them. Hundreds of shells rain down a day from the U.S. You can even look at the brand name on a lot of the unexploded shells and its companies in the United States, whether it be Raytheon or smaller companies. But of course, the U.S. is involved in this, but hopefully this leads smaller countries, the countries that are maybe a little less connected to Israel than the U.S. is, maybe it leads them to stop their weapons transfers. I know some of the countries have already been doing that. Ireland, one of them, has cut off all transfers to Israel. I don't know if they were transferring arms to Israel before now, but they cut cut off whatever they were transferring to Israel. Anyway, let's get to Antony Blinken and his response when he's asked why the U.S. isn't calling this genocide. Let's see what he has to say about this. And by the way, everybody, please click share, click thumbs up. It does help the algorithm. If you are watching on YouTube or Rumble, please make sure you click follow or subscribe, and then you got to click the bell icon. And then on YouTube, you can't just click the bell icon. You then got to choose which of the bells you want. The level of how many more steps can they add to I want to hear about his shit? Like, how many more steps do you need? So you click subscribe, then you click the bell, then you click which type of bell? Is it like a full bell? Is it a Liberty Bell with the crack down the middle? Is it, then you click that bell, and then you need to click the icon of a little leprechaun. He's going to let you know he's the alert leprechaun, and he'll now if you don't click the leprechaun and you just click the cracked bell, then you will never hear about any of my stuff. In fact, you'll get emails saying Lee Cam's not doing videos, which is why I always tell everybody, don't expect to get alerts about my stuff. I'm so suppressed that it just won't happen. So what you gotta do is just show up. Just be here. You don't get an alert to show up to work, right? And that's what this is work. You guys are at your job right now. Show up here. God damn it. I'm joking. I love you a lot, like tongue kiss love right now. So I'm sorry about getting angry like that. That was not nice. Okay. In a few minutes, by the way, we'll go into just rumble.com/LeeCamp. But for now, we will keep this on all the platforms. Okay. So here is Antony Blinken, our Secretary of State, our pupilless Secretary of State. He has no, what's the center of the pupil called? He has no, it's just black. His eyes are just black. It's just straight black. There's nothing there. Anyway, which would, I think if you don't have a soul, that's how it looks.
Mr. Secretary, the topic of genocide has been debated during this trip. I was wondering if you could give us a better sense of what you think about the topic. One of your first major remarks as Secretary of State was accusing Beijing of genocide. Why do you think China's treatment of the Uyghurs constitutes this crime and Israel's treatment of Palestinians does not?
Okay. Good question there, my journalist friend. I'm going to skip to the answer because... Oh, weird. Anyway, that guy asks 5 more questions along with that question. But good question, my friend. Why is it that the U.S. has said China is perpetrating a genocide against Uyghurs, which are Muslim Chinese, when even in the accusations, even in the totally insane, unhinged, crazy U.S. accusations against China, there is no accusation of murdering any Uyghurs. Even in the unhinged propaganda, they don't say they killed any of them. So why is that called a genocide? But as Israel rains bombs down on women and children and innocent people, murdering and causing to be missing, which likely means dead, 37,000 people in 140 days. Why is that not genocide, Mr. Secretary of State? Oh, of course, now the video's buffering. I blame the CIA. Let's try this again.
The topic of genocide has been debated
including very recently before the international many months. I think we've been.
The sound's off from his lips, but I don't know if that matters. It's all garbage. You don't need to see his lips moving. Anyway, it's all garbage. But
very clear over many months and now many years about the Uyghurs, about Rohingya, and
so, and I'll keep playing it, but I just want to break it down as we go. We've made it very clear, and he doesn't. That's not an answer, right? We just made it very clear. They love to use this as a stall tactic, as a bullshit tactic, as an "I'm not going to answer your question" tactic. We see it with the U.S. spokespeople all the time. They just go, "We've made it very clear. Next question," and it's like, wait, you didn't answer but there was clearness. Oh, was it clear? I'm not going to make it clear for you now, but in the past, there's been so much clearness. Oh my God, it's been clear. It's like 2040 vision. Is that clearer than 2020? I don't know how those numbers work. Anyway, so it says we made it very clear about why China has committed genocide against the Uyghurs. Now, I have broken down, and I'm going to get back to his response in a moment, but I have broken down before for you how ridiculous the U.S. claims of genocide against by China against the Uyghurs are. But just as a little reminder, I'll just give you one article reminder. Thank you so much for the donation, James. You're a goddamn saint. Is that a thing you can be, a goddamn saint? I don't know. This is from Gray Zone, and they broke down the U.S. accusations, and they talk about Adrian Zenz as being one of the main voices of these reports. Adrian Zenz being a lunatic, if you want to, be nice about it. So the article says both President Joe Biden and his Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, this is from a couple of years ago, have endorsed former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's last-minute accusation. Mike Pompeo under Donald Trump. So wait, you're saying that Trump and Biden and Blinken and Pompeo said the same thing? Hold on. The two parties are one party? Last-minute accusation of genocide against the Muslim Uyghur population in China's Xinjiang province. The U.S. government's accusation of genocide against China stems from a single source, a June 2020 paper by Adrian Zenz, a right-wing German researcher affiliated with the Victims of Communism Memorial Fund. If you're unfamiliar with that, folks, it's this hilarious organization which claims to count the victims of communism and basically counts anyone who ever dies anywhere in the world as a victim of communism. But they never count the victims of capitalism, which is easily in the hundreds of millions. Every time someone dies of starvation around the world, most of those are victims of capitalism. Vast majority victims of capitalism. But no, that doesn't count in the count, right? Anyway. Articles by the Associated Press, CNN, BBC all relied on Zenz's article to claim that plunging Uyghur birth rates and the application of birth control measures in Uyghur counties of the Xinjiang province were proof of a policy of demographic genocide. So they're adding some qualifiers. Now, I bet you didn't know that. Genocide, you can have like a light genocide, like an easy genocide. Like, they're going for, it's like, like with coffee, you got your like dark black coffee. You got your medium light coffee. It's the same with genocide. You can have your real dark genocide, your medium light, your breakfast blend genocide. I think that's what they're accusing China of here, is the breakfast blend genocide. Adrian Zenz is, in fact, a far-right Christian fundamentalist who has said he is, quote, led by God, unquote, against China's government, deplores homosexuality and gender equality, and has taught exclusively in evangelical theological institutions. He also, they don't mention right there, has said that Jews will burn in hell in a fiery furnace. So good guy all around. Lyle Goldstein, a China specialist and research professor of the Strategic and Operational Research Department of the Naval War College. So I think it's really, they talked to this guy, Lyle Goldstein, and I think it's important to note, this guy's at the Naval War College. This is not a left wing. This is not at the Lenin Trotsky College. All right. They're talking to someone who's an expert on China at the Naval War College. Goldstein says the Chinese approach to Xinjiang is, quote, is a more repressive posture than we would like, but it sure isn't genocide. And he then says it's offensive to people who lost relatives in the Holocaust. Really, it should be offensive to all of us because we should all be offended by the Holocaust. You don't have to have a relative in the Holocaust to be offended by the Holocaust. You can just go ahead and be offended by the Holocaust, which is kind of like, you don't have to have a relative in Gaza to be offended by the genocide that's being perpetrated against them. See how neat that is? You don't have to say like, I have a cousin who died there. You can just say, I'm horrified by this. It's amazing how that works. It really opens it up. It's a bigger club than just having a lot of stipulations. The article then goes on and says that Zenz has used its flagrant data abuse And they pinpoint, they're not just saying that, they show how his data, he literally changes numbers to make it somehow work for his purposes. Fraudulent claims, cherry picking of source material, and propagandistic misrepresentations. Isn't it great how if you're a lunatic who supports the U.S. empire in our propaganda, you can be quoted by and write for the outlets that they mentioned earlier: BBC, AP, Reuters, New York Times, Washington Post. You can be so unhinged and work for all of those outlets and be highly respected as long as you're doing garbage that supports the U.S. empire, U.S. hegemony, U.S. Israeli hegemony, etc. It really is great. I mean, it's just a big, awesome job opportunity. And they show a chart here of birth rates, Han and Uyghur annualized effective population growth. So 1965 to 1975, Han Chinese were had way more population growth. Then Uyghurs had a slight more population growth than Han Chinese in 1975 to 1985, a little more 1985 to 1995. Then Han Chinese go way above, or actually just a little above Uyghur in 1995 to 2005. And then Uyghurs are again ahead in population growth 2005 to 2015. So everything he's saying about population changes is garbage, is laughable, and yet we're expected to believe it's a genocide. And again, the only reason population growth should matter in a discussion of genocide is if they're not murdering everyone. Now, some people like to point, they're literally the Ben Shapiros and these awful human beings of the world. They like to point to the fact that there are more Palestinians alive today than there were in 1948. And there's more people in Gaza today than there were in 1948. And that's proof that there's not a genocide. Now, the population numbers don't matter when you're raining down bombs on children and saying that they're all cockroaches and that you need to turn Gaza into a parking lot. Like when you go to commit genocide, it doesn't matter what the population is. The only reason the population matters in this discussion about China is because that's the only thing they're accusing them of. The only thing in this so-called genocide that the U.S. and Adrian Zenz and these others have been accusing them of was population alterations. All right, let's get back to my man, Tony Blinken. Look deep into his eyes. Look deep into the abyss of his eyes, and the abyss will look back at you. And at which point you will find yourself that you can't take oxygen into your lungs anymore. And you may turn into a lizard. So be ready for that.
And others. And we've laid out in some detail. In fact, I had the opportunity to lay out some detail when it came to the Rohingya exactly why we see the genocide being perpetrated. Similarly, including very recently before the International Court, we had an opportunity, and others have had an opportunity to make clear why that is simply not the case when it comes to Gaza.
He hasn't said anything. He literally, the guy said, why do you see genocide with Uyghurs and you don't see genocide with Gazans? And his response was, we laid out why we saw genocide with Uyghurs, and now at the ICJ, we laid out why we don't see genocide with Gaza. That's not an answer. You literally just repeated what he asked you, basically. Yeah, why do you see genocide with them? Like, of course Gaza's genocide, and of course the Uyghurs are not. Like, it is so breathtakingly stupid. What do they think, we're children? Don't answer that question. The answer is yes. They think most Americans are children do, such as the spy balloon.
And we've been very clear about the meritless nature of that particular charge.
We've said things that I'm not saying here. Listen, I have clearly laid out the things I'm not going to lay out. I have said very clearly exactly what it is that I don't know, because for me to try and defend this is utterly preposterous. So I will just keep saying we've laid it out when we haven't laid out anything. They're like, of course, Gaza's genocide. Of course it's ethnic cleansing. What are you, out of your minds? And literally, I think I mentioned it in the last live stream. Literally, I had someone call me a self-hating Jew the other day in person, which is different than Twitter. You know, Twitter, I don't pay any attention to that. In person. And they said, and I said, yeah, well, you can't watch this many children die and just say it's okay. And they said, well, Hamas took hostages and Israel would never do that. Now, I hope all of you are laughing right now. Israel would never take hostages. Israel had 5,000 hostages before October 7th. Before Hamas breached those walls, they had 5,000 hostages. Israel did. Many of them were women and children. So, again, trying to defend this insanity is just juvenile. It's fucking juvenile.
So I'm not going to rehearse the details here, but I think the record.
You should rehearse the details because you have no details. There have been no details. He just keeps saying the record.
Very clear on that. Setting that aside.
And now I'm going to set aside the thing I didn't answer.
As you know, as we've spoken extensively about, we are determined to see the conflict in Gaza end as soon as possible in a way that ensures.
Let me ask you folks something. If you ship a bunch of guns and missiles to somebody and they do a lot of killing and you keep doing that and keep sending them guns and missiles and bombs and money while you're saying, I'd really like to see the bombing stop. Would you believe that person really wants to see the bombing stop? Like, if there were a mass shooter and over several hours he's shooting everybody in a shopping mall, and you keep delivering him more ammunition. You're like, here you go, here it is. And then you turn around, and because the news crews have come, because there's an ongoing mass shooting, news crews have come, and you turn around and you talk to the news crews and you say, I'm doing everything I can to stop this mass shooting from going on anymore. Could you excuse me for a minute? I got to deliver more ammo to this guy. Would you believe that person? Because that's what we're doing. That analogy is not even far off. It's pretty much an A to B analogy. It's a 1-to-1. Like, that's exactly what it is. Would anyone look at that guy who's delivering the ammo and go, that guy really wants to stop this mass shooting? He is doing everything he can to try and stop it.
That October 7th can never happen again, but also that the suffering that Palestinians have endured.
Yeah, you care a lot about the suffering, don't you? Can't you just tell? With his soulless eyes, the deep, dark void in his pupilless eyes. Yeah, he cares a lot about the sufferings. It keeps him up at night, I'm sure.
It doesn't happen again. In the first instance, we're focused on getting the hostages out, getting an extended humanitarian ceasefire.
When he says hostages out, guess which hostages he means? Only the ones in Gaza. He does not mean the hostages Israel's holding, which, by the way, Israel has taken, nobody's sure of the exact number, but Israel has taken 5,000 to 10,000 more hostages since October 7th. So it was 5,000 before October 7th. Now it's probably in the range of 10,000 to 15,000 people that Israel has grabbed up as hostages. Many of them, again, women and children. Thank you so much for the donation. Zozodo. You rock. You guys are amazing. And literally, you keep this show rolling. It's the only way is you guys becoming members at leecamp.net, which is my locals page, and super chat donations like that one. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to continue this breakdown of Blinken. Blinken has more to say. I'm going to continue that breakdown, but also I'm going to get to the New York Times just mind-blowing admissions about the Ukraine proxy war that I never thought you'd see them admit, honestly. All of that is going to be at rumble.com/leecamp. It's free. It's free. It's free. Did I mention it's free? You can watch it for free, rumble.com/leecamp. Also, it keeps going on my locals page. But head on over there and just click if it doesn't come up immediately, click the live tab, and then it'll be the first one. It says something about Israel's more soulless than ever before or something like that. So join me over there because we're going to continue over at rumble.com/Lee Camp. There's rumble.com/Lee Camp. Did I mention rumble.com/Lee Camp? It's rumble.com/Lee Camp. Okay. I think I said it enough. I think you guys got the idea. There's no